Wanted to ramble a little bit to gather my thoughts on pain and the concept I often talk about of it's easy when it's easy, it's hard when it's hard. So let me start through that angle and then we'll bring pain in and we'll see where we end up. It's easy when it's easy, it's hard when it's hard. It's hard when it's hard to do the right thing. It's hard when it's hard to do the thing you want to do. Hard is the word there that kind of got me into this idea of being relative because it's a moving stick, right? The way I think about it is it's hard when it feels really hard to do, which is, again, one of those things I often say it sounds stupid, but there's something important in it. If it starts to feel, it's not objective. The idea of something being hard is not objective, not with other people, not even for yourself. You can't say that it's hard when, work's really busy and, it's bad weather outside for me to, be happy or do the things I want to do. Because it's only hard when it's actually hard. And so how do you start to define hard? It's when, again, let me ramble. It's when the thing you're trying to do feels like it cannot be done. It's not, I think often we step back and we try and anchor on objective things like work's been busy or I haven't been feeling that well or my wife's sick or whatever, these things that, that must be hard, right? Work's been really busy and you're not feeling well. That must be a tough time for you. Maybe, but it's not about those objective anchors because I don't want to say they're meaningless, but it's all relative. It's if doing, because you can imagine a scenario where work's been busy, you don't feel good, your wife's sick, it's been bad weather out, so you haven't been able to get outside. You can imagine a scenario like that, but actually, it hasn't been that bad, right? So to anchor on that objective idea of what hard means, you have to anchor it internally relative to what it's like to do this when it's easy. It has to be in a situation where it actually feels hard. Like, fuck, man, I can't do that, or that's impossible, or that's gonna be too hard, or this is too much. It's those moments. It's only then, right? And there's a very thin line between hard and impossible. And that's where you're getting at, where it feels like it could almost be impossible to do this thing. That's when it's hard. And that's when it matters the most. When it's still possible, but it feels impossible. And that's obviously a very difficult thing to kind of lay out very clearly and know exactly when it's possible versus impossible and how you're assessing it, right? So I recognize that. Pain kind of comes in because that made me start thinking about it in a similar way, right? Pain is like that. Oh, you separated your shoulder, or you have a pinched nerve, or you jammed your finger, or you burnt your hand on the stove. Ooh, that must hurt, right? And jamming your finger versus separating your shoulder versus breaking your leg, there seems to be a clear hierarchy of pain there, of which one hurts more. And again, there's probably some conventional wisdom to that. And if you kind of aggregate it all out and average it, there's probably some truth to that. That's why we got there, to these objective anchors of what's hard or what pain is. But the reality is pain, much like it being hard, pain is when the thing you're feeling feels unbearable, I would say, right? That's like extreme pain. That's really bad. It's all relative to your tolerance for it. You could jam your finger, break your leg, but if for whatever reason, and maybe there's genetics and physiology involved here, if it just doesn't bother you that much, your pain receptors are such or whatever, where it's like, it's not that bad, well, then you're not in much pain. Like, the pain isn't that bad, obviously, by definition. It's only when it gets to a point to where you could say, like, oh, that pain was, that was severe pain. Well, how do you know? How do you know that was severe pain? Because I couldn't bear it. I almost couldn't bear it. It was too much. I needed to do something about it. I had to. My body wouldn't accept it. That's when you're in true pain. But again, you can't anchor that on things. You can't say, oh, that happens when you, again, break your leg or whatever. It is all relative. And most likely there's other things at play there that drive that. It's not just literally that pain. Probably there's other psychological stuff that is at play too, maybe. But it gets back to this idea that it is all relative. Difficulty, discomfort, which really is the term I like to use for all this, right? Pain, something being hard and challenging, whatever. There's discomfort involved. That discomfort is all relative. When it's hard, and the reason I even came to this of like easy when it's easy, hard when it's hard is I've been dealing with some difficult stuff lately, as we all have, right? But it seemed like we were at one of those times where it was hard. And I started thinking about how do I know this is so hard? And it came back to that idea of where it seems like it's almost impossible. It seems like it's almost unbearable for me. It's not something I'm going to be able to overcome. But that's the signal. Like, oh, okay, now it's hard. Anything before that, regardless of what the objective anchor said, regardless of what it, felt like relative to other things you're dealing with, if it was manageable and something you were like, yeah, this sucks or this is annoying or it's uncomfortable, but I could deal with it. It's okay. Then it's not hard. It's hard when it's fucking hard. When it feels like there is no way I'm going to be able to do this. That's the moment where all the training, all the thinking, all the mental toughness, all that comes into play and you need to use it. And what I found is, again, not always, thin line between hard and impossible. More times than not, our minds want to believe impossible when it's really just hard.